Time no see. All right, good morning, guys. Good to see you. Welcome. Merry Christmas. All the thanks. I woke up this morning with just a smile on my face, in part because these are some of my favorite mornings. I love these gatherings. Just a perfect way to start the day, to gather with a good group of guys in the presence of the Lord. But the other reason I was smiling is I woke up thinking, there's no way today is going to be worse than yesterday. You ever have those days when just about everything that can go wrong goes wrong in one day? So I'll give you a really quick story. So yesterday morning was tough. It was brutal. I'll spare you the details, but it was probably one of the hardest mornings I've had in a long time. And I survived the morning. I made it to the afternoon. I thought, surely this day is going to get better. It has to. And so I show up at a meeting after lunch, and I get there about 5 minutes early. And I roll down my window. The sun is coming on my face. The breeze is, I thought, this is heaven on earth. This day is getting better. 5 seconds later, this truck comes barreling down the street and absolutely drenches me with slush. I'm talking about picture a 5-gallon bucket of slush and somebody walking up to my car window and dumping it right on me. Drenched my car. I'm sopping wet. I almost cussed. Instead, I laughed. I said, of course that would be today. And so I know today is going to be a good day. It's going to be a great day. And I'm excited to hear from Scott Palmer, Chris Fowler, Sam Cameron, Tim Middlebrook. These guys serve on our non-staff elder board. I've known them for a long time. I have such a love and respect for each of these guys. They're seasoned businessmen. They're wise leaders. I've had many conversations just where I've walked away just like, wow, that was I was just soaking up the wisdom they had to share. But they're also men who have just poured so much of their lives into this place. They have given their blood, sweat, and tears to New Life Church. And New Life is flourishing for so many reasons. I mean, we're thriving as a church, and one of the important reasons why is because of these guys, because of their leadership, because of their faithfulness, because of the way that they are overseeing and shepherding. And so I'm just so thankful. And I want to publicly thank you guys for just everything you've given this place. And so help me welcome these men to the stage. You know, I was thinking about this morning. A lot of times, people don't think much about the elders or who the elders are until there's a crisis. And then if there's a crisis, it's like, well, who's the elders around here? And so it's just really good because you guys have just been quietly serving and offering your strength to this place. And so I'd love to start just by more context by way of introduction. Just tell us about your family, how long you've been in the Springs, and then a little bit about your vocational, your business experience. We'll start right here. You want to start, Sam?
Start with me. I got a hat on because I went to the skin doctor yesterday, and he got a little trigger happy with that little gun. I was mad at him. Tell you what, I said, you're not being very nice today. So it's not very pretty up there.
But the hat is pretty. It's
Cat's cool, man. It's camo. Yes. Anyway, I'm Sam Cameron. I've been in the elder board since 2014. It's been a great honor to serve. I have an amazing wife, Helen. We've been married for over 43 years now. And we have 3 amazing kids. 3 girls. Oldest one's married. She lives in Denver. And our middle daughter and our youngest one work with us. We have a commercial real estate company, and they work with us in the business, which is great. And I just love that, and just love where God has us. I'm 64 years old, so I'm excited, Jack, because next year I get on Medicare. I mean, it's something to be excited about. I've never felt like this before. No, I'm incredibly blessed, and I'm at a wonderful time in my life where I feel that I'm in the spot where God wants me, and I'm grateful for that. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Business? Yeah.
Tim, you're
What's that? Sorry.
up.
Okay, Sam's our eldest elder.
Eldest.
So
I thought I'd get that.
I'm Tim Middlebrook, and I've been at New Life for 19 years this year, and elder since 2011, and married 26 years, 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls who really grew up here. I remember being a Royal Ranger leader, 2006 or so, 5, and my kids grew up here, and so I love New Life and just love serving in this role. It's just an honor to serve in this role. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Every Home for Christ. Been there for 22 years, and just feel fruitful these days. And so glad to be here with you this morning.
And Tim's a big runner, and so in fact, back in the day when I had that crazy idea to try the Leadville 100, Tim was kind enough to train with me a lot. So we logged a lot of miles together. He is a good man, I can tell you that.
I looked that up this morning on my phone. It was 2013 that we did Rampart Reservoir together in Matthew.
Yep.
And 2013, I don't know if I could do that today, but.
All right, Scott.
Scott Palmer. I actually grew up in Colorado Springs. My mom and dad moved me here when I was 6 months old, so we've been here for about 53 years. Got a company called Defined Wealth. I'm a registered investment advisor. Kind of manage assets for higher net worth retired couples. It's a blessing. I've been married to the most amazing woman on the planet for the last 26 years. I've got 2 boys, both up at the academy. One plays defensive end. He's a senior, just retired from football. He's pretty excited about that. And then I have a fullback. His name is Cade. He's a sophomore up there. And love this church. They grew up in this church. I grew up in this church. Tim and I started the eldership. I used to call myself the Yelder because I felt like I was young. Now I'm definitely an elder. It's kind of a bummer, but just love New Life. And I grew my family up here. We have the pleasure of bringing about 12 cadets to the Friday night service. When they kind of first started that Friday night service, Brady said, is there anybody that wants to, any of the elders that want to go champion that service? And so we raised our hands, and we've been at Friday night ever since, which has been a blessing for us too. So love Colorado Springs, love my family. I'm blessed in such amazing ways, and just serving New Life. And it is kind of funny. Beth and I were talking, my wife and I were talking about last night about all the different things that we've done at New Life. And my most awkward moment at New Life Church was when my kindergartner at the time said, Dad, would you be on the praise and worship team? And I said, yeah, I mean, I'd love to do that for a bunch of kindergartners. Well, anyways, 5 years later, I finally got to retire out of that role, but we would literally show up and do all these dance moves. And if you know anything about me, I can't sing and I can't dance. So it was 5 years of the elementary. It was a wild ride.
I might ask you to show us some of those dance moves.
That is not going to happen.
Matthew said, prove it. You know, one of the amazing things about the Palmers, about Scott, if you go to their house, there's a really good chance the entire defensive line is going to be at their dinner table. Yeah. The way that you guys have opened your house and fed those guys is really, really remarkable and generous, and so good on you, man. All right, Chris?
Yeah, my name's Chris Fowler, and I am working on my 35th year of marriage. That'll be our wedding anniversary this next year. 4 kids, and the first one was born in 97 and the last in 2001, so how old are they? You know, they range. I think 27 to 23 right now. 2 girls and 2 boys. One of them is married and lives in Guatemala. I don't know if you guys have heard of Casa Angelina with Jeremiah Parks, Nikki Parks, but he went down there right before COVID started and got stuck there. So, and then ended up finding a wife, and he works down there. He's there full time, so. And then I had a business called Church Community Builder, or some people know it as CCB, church management software that we sold to PushPay. What is today's date? The 12th?
Yeah.
5 years ago, this day is when I signed the papers to sell my company. And then stayed on the board with PushPay up until last summer. So, but I actually get to be a full-time composer now of cinematic music, which I love. And then I do these life planning kind of retreats with men as well. So, yeah, that's kind of where I am now.
Well, speaking of planning, I'd love to start here, just in terms of, this is the time of year where it's just common leaders are thinking about next year, praying for next year. Of course, that process for many of you started months ago. But I would love to hear your thoughts when it comes to how do you reflect on, so in this case, 2024, and evaluate what worked, what was fruitful, what didn't work. And then how do you look forward and begin to dream and pray and lean into 2025 in terms of planning? Who wants to go first? Scott, you're giving me the eye. You want to go first?
You misread that eye. No, I'm happy to go first. I think the most important thing to do when you're trying to look back and look forward is get away. It's probably not going to happen in your basement with all the kids running around. It's probably not going to happen on a Saturday night where you're tired or Michigan just beat OSU. It's not a good time. But I think for us, the way that we handle it and I handle it is my wife and I get away. Like we're going to do that on the night of the 21st and 22nd. Kids are going to the games, so they're going to be out of the house. So we're just going to go up to Denver and get a hotel room and just talk it out. Talk about, our family goals, our business goals, our spiritual goals, and look back on the year and go, hey, what worked and what didn't work, and what goals did we have that we just blew off? And goals are tough, because they ebb and flow, and you have to be okay with that. But I think in looking forward and back, you have to get away and you have to get by yourself.
Yeah, to have space and solitude. How about you, Tim?
Well, I'm 57, and I just have disciplines in my life that I just practice daily, and which includes, goals that I've set at the beginning of each year, and I document them, and I will get away as well. At every home we have 13 prayer grottos, and so I'll get away in a grotto for a day or two in December, just to firm up some of those things. It's like in November I start thinking about the new year, and I just have things that are going through my mind, and we'll just firm those up in December sometime. But they align with, at my age now, I have things that I want to accomplish professionally and financial, just all those things that you want to do. But they just become more and more real, I think, the older you get for me. And I just have some legacy goals. And so the things that I work on in any given year are just working towards those things. And so I write them down, and then I, follow them throughout the year, and I keep them. I have a thing at home that I can go to, and it's got paper clipped, the books I read that year, the mountains I climbed, how many miles I logged for fitness and net worth. And so I can look at any given year for the last several years and it's compiled. I can go to it and just see how things have accumulated over time. And so, I think that comes with age. There's no way I would do that in my 30s or 40s, but as you get older, those things are important, and yeah, so.
The word I think of when I hear that is intentionality. You are disciplined, but you're also very intentional with how you track all of that. How about you, Sam? What comes to mind?
You'd started with the word reflect, and I've been blessed to have some great influences in this process. Being around Chris is incredible, and he's just a master at it. The foundation that he helped me build. And so actually last weekend we went up to Scottsdale with two other guys, and we did a life planning retreat. I also do one with my wife, like Scott described. We're in business together, so we like to do that as well. So kind of blend it all together. But my reflection is where I start, and reflecting on the year that's been, and looking at the things I wrote down a year ago, and I reflect on the faithfulness of God. It's amazing just to see where God led me. Because, the whole core of this, it's centering, isn't it? And having Christ at the center of the whole thing that we're doing. Otherwise, why are we doing it, I was sharing with Tim, my dad was an incredible influence in my life. And one thing he said, one of his life scriptures was in Psalm 127, unless the Lord builds a house, the labor in vain that build it. He would say, that which is begun by effort has to be carried on by effort. And I don't want that. I don't want to, at 64 years old, I don't want effort. I want things to be working smoothly. I mean, yeah, we've all got challenges, so I get that. But I don't want to be outside of God's will and trying to pursue something that I'm not supposed to pursue. So I really want to be conscious of that. And that's kind of where mine starts. I revise it and then bring it forward and just follow it, So yeah, just like that. It's great.
That's the scripture I came back to again and again 10 years ago when I was stepping into this role of men's ministry. Lord, unless you build the house, I labor in vain. So what are you building when it comes to New Life Men? So thank you for reminding me of that. He called you a master, so there's no pressure, Chris, but go for it.
That's not true. I did start trying to, when the company was growing, was really just out of necessity is how it all started for me about 20 years ago. I would start getting away about every quarter to, because I had 4 kids that at the time were all, I didn't want it to, it was really important to me that the business didn't become so much that I didn't know my kids when they got older and wanted to figure out how to balance all that. And so I just needed to step back about every quarter and kind of see the big picture of things, and there's a guy that used to run Thomas Nelson called Michael Hyatt that had a really good blog back in the day about life planning, and one of the exercises that I started with was writing my eulogy out. And so thinking through, not in a morbid way, just in a way of what would I want my wife, what would I want my kids, my best friends, my coworkers to say about me if they were eulogizing me in the end. And so that was kind of the starting point for me. I actually personified Jesus too, thought, well, what if Jesus was actually speaking at my funeral? What would I want him to say about my life? And so that and I would call that a living document that hasn't stayed the same all these years, but that's kind of what I, about every quarter, go and look at and then think through, what am I doing this quarter? It's not really a yearly thing for me, it's more quarterly. And I think through that and try to plan around that, trying to put it in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, but there is a time, like Sam was talking about, of reflecting and gratitude and things like that, and then kind of the now and then looking forward. So,
yeah, that is so good. One of the things you guys were alluding to is you're talking about being old elders and age, but you're seasoned, right? You've earned that gray hair, that silver hair. So we've got some young leaders in the room this morning. What would you think? I didn't give you a heads up about this question, but listening to you, what would you say to yourself at 30 or 35 when it comes to being a young man, being a leader? What have you learned the hard way?
I paid for my learning.
To me, it was what I just said. I'm thankful that I kind of got a hold to kind of a way to look at the world, especially as a business owner and one that was growing really quickly, to not have a good relationship with my kids in the end. I think if, that was 35 was a little less than 20 years ago for me. So it was probably about when I started doing the life planning. And I just am very grateful today, the relationship that I have with my kids. And I wouldn't have wanted business I would just be careful about that. Yeah. And my wife too. That's a given, but yeah.
I think what I would say is there's a lot of fruit that comes from being planted over time. For me, I just being here in Colorado Springs for, like I've mentioned, 22 years. I've been at Every Home for 22 years, at New Life for 19, married for 26, and just, at 30, 35, you should be planting at that point yourself, growing roots. And then, I've just been thinking, in these last few years, I'm like, wow, I just can't believe I've been doing these things for this long at the same place, just been faithful in everything that I'm faithful to my wife, always have been, faithful to the church, faithful to my kids, faithful to my profession. And that, I think that comes with daily habits. And then you wake up and you're 20, 25 years in and you're like, wow, I mean, there's fruit from being planted by the rivers of water, So I think that's what I would say to a 30, 35-year-old. Grow roots somewhere and stay planted.
I'd say, even at 35, I think charging ahead, ambitious to some degree, taking a lot of risk, and it not always working out, and realizing that when you borrow money, you got to pay it back. And it's hard sometimes when the market's not so good for you. So I really, of course, at this stage in my life, things are completely different in how I do things and think about things and the risks I take. So I really encourage a 35-year-old to be thoughtful in their decisions, not to be scared to take risks, and have fun, but be thoughtful, get some good, what's that Ronald Reagan saying? Trust but verify. I borrowed a lot of money one time on a guy I really liked, and I thought he was giving me good information, but I never really verified it. Guess what? I had to pay it all back. So that was a lesson about 37 years old, 38 years old, and it's really hard to pay money back when you after tax money. I mean, it's just hard. So, but anyway, I did it, and I'm here today because of it. So, and keep Christ at the center of what you're doing. Yeah.
We have this saying in my family that assumption is the lowest form of knowledge. And I think I assumed a lot when I was 35. I assumed that life was going to go easy and that I was going to have this perfect marriage and that I was going to have these perfect kids. And then as you start growing and stuff happens. I mean, it just does. My wife was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. We almost lost her. And that happened at about 40. I was 38. That resets your whole world. Yeah. I mean, I had a kindergartner and a first grader, and mom might not be coming home. So what I really learned in that stage of my life was, man, you don't know what you got till it's gone or it gets close to being gone. So, you're going to go through some tough stuff. But I tell you what, it changed my marriage, changed the way that I talked to my wife, changed the way that I talked to my kids. The office became a lot less important. So I would say, don't assume. Maybe some of you will have that life where you don't really hit your wall, but I doubt it. And so, as a matter of fact, if you do, I'd love to talk to you, figure out how you did that. We could write a bestseller. But, just embrace the fact that life has some bumps. And you got to make the best of it, and you got to stay centered. And, one of the things that I learned that I don't say to people anymore is I'll pray for you, unless I'm really going to pray for them. Because we would wake up at 2 a.m. and Beth would grab my arm and say, can you feel that? Somebody's praying for us right now. And believe it or not, I was like, yeah, I can feel that. Sometimes I miss that. Sometimes you go through those trials and you miss that level of intimacy that you get with the Holy Spirit. Because what else are you going to do? You're desperate for him. You're desperate at a whole new level for him in those times. So I went through that when I was 38. It was a 2-year process till we hit about 40. And thank God he spared her and spared my family. And, it's after that, it kind of is unicorns and rainbows, honestly. But, just don't assume. Just don't assume. It's the lowest form of knowledge. God's going to get you there. Just dig into your family, dig into your friends, hug your wife a little tighter.
All right, a couple more questions, and then we'll have a few minutes to open it up and do some Q&A. But one of the things I see in each of you is humility. And I know we were talking previously about how important it is, no matter what season of life you're in, how old you are, to stay teachable, right? To stay open. And I know just in the leadership journey, we have to fight to stay humble. And so I'd love to hear you guys speak to that. How have you intentionally gone after humility? And how have you stayed open and teachable before the Lord? How have you resisted pride?
God doesn't like pride. I start the day with my wife in prayer every day, and then have time in the Word, and really fight that. Really fight pride, because we all fight it, right? The more successful we become, the more we fight it. And really fight it. And then fight it the next day too, And every time pride raises its ugly head, I fight it again, So it's a battle. I'm just going to be honest. It's a battle. You have success. You think you're really good at something, and you are. And yeah, you're doing it well, and it's working. So it's a battle every day. So yeah, no, I can't lie. Fight it every day.
And Sam, I know I've heard you talk about how you really have had to learn to understand your source is God.
Yes, I told you that. One of the things I learned, and we all do this. We tend to look to other people to meet our needs. Somebody that's more successful than us, maybe in our business, is a big investor, is some kind of guru that's going to take us to the next level, And I've been fortunate to work with amazingly successful people that are just incredible and wonderful, godly people too, But I've found myself many times putting my faith in them, and the Lord corrected me years ago, and I've always remembered, and I pray this every day, that God is my source. He is my source. I look to Him, not to this guy and wherever, and it's just, it's freeing. It's freeing, because now you can make better decisions and have, make better choices.
Any other thoughts on choosing humility, resisting pride?
I think if you pray for humility, God will deliver. And so I think for me, there's been times in my life, I pray for it a lot. But that is a bold prayer. Because I'm surrounded with people that are smarter than me. I'm surrounded, my wife keeps me humble. My boys, keep me humble. So I think and like I said, I think it's a bold request to say, God, keep me humble, because He'll say, all right, here we go.
You asked for it, man.
Some of you remember Peter Wagner from years ago. I think he said one time, if God has to humble you, it's too late. So I want to take care of business. I don't want to get to that point, That's a great point. So.
Yeah, for me, I think more about teachable spirit. Because I think probably humility comes out of that maybe or something, but the reading the Proverbs a lot. I did when I was a teenager. I actually did the day of the. I've done that actually as an adult too, but there's 31 chapters, and so most months you can get through the whole thing if it's Proverb a day. And if you kind of sum up Proverbs, the whole idea is wisdom versus foolishness, and the difference between a wise person and a fool is really how open to instruction and correction you are. And so I've just always wanted to be open to that. And to, I used to tell people at Church Community Builder we talked about how to treat people, who came in the office even, and there was a lady who took care of the plants. So I would use the plant lady as an example of everybody in here has something they could learn from the plant lady. Don't let that person come through doing all this pass by and just look kind of down on that person as they just are here to serve us, but to care for them, that kind of thing. But I really think teachable spirit. We were talking as we were kind of as a group about things that might come up. I thought, by the way, Gabe, you were going to say yesterday it got good and good. We met about 2:00 yesterday. So when he said the thing about my day just kept getting worse, I was like, we looked at it, the four of us over here like, oh, okay. So at 2:00 it got worse.
Well, the day got better because I got to be with you guys.
Yeah.
That was helpful.
But we were talking about the book Necessary Endings and how impactful that was, and that book is top 3 to me. And chapter 7 in that book is what I think a lot of authors would write a whole book about, and it was the difference between a wise person and a foolish person, and an evil, but they don't spend much time on that, but how to kind of tell the difference between those two. So that's what I think of when you talk.
Okay, well, we've got, we're going to transition here to some Q&A. And Chad, if you'll come up and grab a mic. while we're transitioning, if you guys can take just maybe 15 seconds, I'd love to hear you speak to what are you seeing at New Life that is just encouraging, it's deeply encouraging to your heart.
I love, Chris said something the other day that I really was encouraged by. And we're talking about the amount of baptisms, the conversions, the salvations. And he made the point that that's fruit. Yes. That's fruit that's not just born 2 weeks ago. You know, it's been in the process. Yeah. And we're seeing fruit. Yeah. I love that, Chris. You know, it's just such a good, and it's from years of sowing, you know, and tending and pruning and working and speaking, and we're seeing fruit. It's wonderful. Love it.
You know, I'm just so encouraged by where we are compared to where we were, you know. And I mean, just being an elder since 2011, you know, I think Scott and I came on at the same time. Brady was, even back then, was wanting to attack the debt. Mm-hmm. And so just over the years, I mean, that was, you know, a 12-year process, which, you know, everybody here knows we celebrated a year ago. And it just feels like there are just such great things coming. We feel healthy and just so honored to be a part of these years that I've served, and to see where we were, where we are now, and really anticipate great things ahead. So,
one of the best parts of my week is on Friday nights after watching all these kids just like come into the sanctuary and mess it up. I mean, I think it's awesome. They're just running around. They're just acting like kids. And for me, just seeing the young families on Friday and Sunday mornings is a huge blessing, because I mean, it feels like forever ago, but we were there chasing them and using the little tags to get them out of the class and all of those things. So I think for me, one of the biggest joys that I have is just watching the young families at this church, watching these kids grow up in this church, because I know how it affected me and my family and my wife. So I'm just super thankful for that.
Well, I thought what Sam said is a really.
It's good, man.
So what was the question again?
Just what are you seeing at New Life that just encourages your heart?
I'll do one that's kind of a interesting one. Is just our team, even behind the scenes. It's not always just peaches and cream. What did you call it? Unicorns and rainbows. And yet I still see God working through all that. And I think his will is being done through our church in spite of just human involvement and because of human involvement. So I think I just get encouraged of, you know, through ups and downs and all that, God still works through his people, no matter how flawed we all are. Yeah.
Amen to that. Okay, we've got a few minutes left here. So if you've got a question or something that he said stirred some more curiosity in you, we want to give space for that.
Good morning. Thank you for your service. Looking ahead as an elder board, what do you see as the next big challenge for you?
Not it. I mean, I think keeping the culture of this church going forward is probably our biggest challenge. I think, you know, Brady's not getting any younger like the rest of us. And so, you know, as he transitions in the future, whatever that might look like, you know, how do we keep the culture? How do we keep this still happening? Not that it all is on Brady's shoulders by any means, because it's not. The team here is amazing. I mean, Gabe is amazing. So, but how do we keep the culture as we age? I mean, you know, sooner or later, we're going to run out of gas, and there's going to be a whole new group of elders up here. So how do you keep that culture? How do you keep this church, which is New Life, looking like New Life, which is obviously through a lot of prayer and humility and passing the baton. But how do you pass the baton well?
It is a great question. It's one that we shouldn't be scared of. But I mean, we live in interesting times where the culture's changing, unbelievable, and we're all see it every day. Just came through a brutal election, even though we might be happy about the outcome. That's not the answer. So I think just, to continue, as Scott says, keep the culture, seek the Lord, continue to do spiritual warfare for the leaders that are serving here. Because they're under attack every day. Let me tell you, Gabe's talking about his day yesterday. These guys are under attack every day. Pastors, my friend Rich Fickle here works with an organization that helps pastors that are struggling. And, they're quitting every day. So I think that is something we need to appreciate our pastors, is support them in prayer and encouragement every time we can. Every time we can.
Thank you for your service to the church. You guys are all successful men. Have there ever been seasons in your life where you've gone through failures? What would those failures be, and what did you learn through it?
Hey, while you're thinking about this, we typically end right at 8 o'clock. And so if you got to go at 8, I understand, but we'll have you out by 8:05 today. So if you will afford us 5 extra minutes this morning.
Yeah, I've definitely had monumental failures in life that I've learned so much from in business, and I've been able to maintain the faith, and I've been able to maintain my integrity and been able to get through it. But it wasn't easy. It was hard, and I grew there more spiritually than I have when, the business is just thriving and booming, So that's what I learned, that it was during those times I definitely grew in my faith and in my, just in spiritually speaking. So yeah, it was good. Wouldn't change it.
I think, certainly failures come, but I think what comes more often are difficult times. And for me, I've found, I think it was Bill Gates that said that success is a terrible teacher. And so it's during those difficult times that you can really, for me, my faith is more strengthened. I lean into the Lord a lot harder. And so although difficult times are difficult, I've always felt that they are just been the most. That's when my roots grow deeper, So that experience.
Yeah, I was thinking as well of words are funny, right? Like it depends on how you define the word failure in a way, because I think more along the lines of what Tim was saying of some of the toughest times. Like there was a 5-year span for me that I helped with a different company before my own get started and launched and things, and promises not kept, like lots of really difficult things that today I would never take that back. Like those most formative 5 years of then, little did I know I would be starting something and running into some of those very same things and having decision points that I had experienced the other side of, that I feel like it kind of trained me for. So I wouldn't take it back. But I don't know if that would be considered a failure or just really, really hard set of years,
I mean, not to sound like Tony Robbins here, but if you're not failing, you're not trying, and I think that's something that I had a failure yesterday. It knocked me off my rails huge, and it took me about 24 hours just to. I woke up this morning and I was like, okay, God, I'm ready to talk again, because I wasn't yesterday, to be honest. But I think the reality is if failing is just being genuine. Like if you talk to somebody and they can't pull out a couple of failures out of their life, don't hang out with them. They're not safe,
Walking with a limp.
Yeah, they're not real.
Okay, we've got time for one more.
Yeah, again, thank you for being here, gentlemen. It's been an honor being in here. But just one quick question. You guys, when you became fathers and you start to see your children become young adults and go out in the world and find their own path, whether it's they're going to get married and just go on their next journey, how do you continue to be the position of dad and not get in the way of God, what God's trying to do in their life?
So here, this was to me, when you said pray for humility, here was the hardest prayer for me as a parent, was when they were probably in the realm of like all pre-20s, but probably like, I don't know, 14 to 18, something like that, was praying that God would make their faith their own. Because I think so many times, and each journey, I would even say one of my kids is still on that journey, and that's like to me, if all my kids were just following Jesus, what more is there to worry about in life is kind of how I feel. And so, but I also didn't want it to be they do all their things just because that's what I did or their mom did, So I think that prayer, while it's good in the long run, the way each of them got there took different paths. And one of them still want to believe the path will get there as well. So
I think for me, I have 4 kids, and they're all adults now. Prior, their school ages. Yeah, I'm operating as dad. But as they've grown into adults, I play different roles now, and I'll tell them, okay, now I'm going to be coach. This is what I'm saying as a coach, or this is what I'm telling you as a pastor, or no, here's what dad is saying. So as adults, young adults, I think, they wouldn't understand that when they're younger, but you're able to communicate with them as adults now, but explain to them the role that you're playing at that moment, and because they're becoming adults and they're going through various things, and so I feel like that's been really helpful for me and for them to hear, okay, I'm hearing you in this way. So
I think the biggest lie we're told is that they get easier when they get older. I think it just changes. Like, you're not worried about, you did what on the playground to who? You're like, you're dating who and why? And so one of the things that I've just, because mine are 23 and 21, the question that I ask them a lot is, am I a dad right now, or are we friends right now? Like, what mode do you need me in? And they'll say friends, and then I'll go, great. And I'll just sit there and listen and think, okay, shut up. And then they'll get done and they'll go, all right, now I need a dad. And then they've opened that door for me to go into. So that's my big question. Am I your friend right now or your dad?
Yeah, I feel incredibly blessed by my kids and watching their growth spiritually and their own faith and walking with the Lord. That is so encouraging as a dad. I try not to give unsolicited advice. That's one of my weaknesses, perhaps, and I try not to do that. So, and I work with 2 of our kids, and we've got a great relationship, I feel like, and that's a balance there too, but God's faithful there too. So I'm grateful for where we're at.
All right, can we close? Sam, would you mind just praying a blessing over these men? Guys,
I want to say something. I believe there's guys in this room today, Gabe, that are going to do great things. And God's speaking in your heart even now. And don't be afraid in the coming days and weeks to step out. Whatever he's saying, step out and do it. Do it. I'm telling you, I was praying about this on the way here, and I really felt I wanted to share it. So thank you for that opportunity. So step out. Whatever God's speaking to your heart, let faith rise up and, step out. Seek counsel, seek some of these men around you, and step out. Go for it, because God's got great things. And I know there's greatness all over this room. So every one of you need to step up and do what God's called you to do, that you're going to live your God-given potential. So what was the question again?
I was just asking you to pray a blessing over these men.
Father, sorry.
That was a blessing, though.
Father, let's pray. Father, I just thank you so much for the men, for the callings that are within this room, Lord, old and young, for every stage of our life, Lord. You have every decade, Lord, every place we're at through the years, Lord, you have a plan for us. And I just pray today, Lord, that we would be sensitive to your plan. At the end of the year, as we set time aside to seek you, Lord, help us to center that plan on you and on your will, your kingdom come. your will be done in our lives, in our families' lives, in this church's life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Hey, can we thank these guys for being with us this morning? Hey, just one really quick announcement. This is important for January. Typically, we're on the second Thursday of every month. There's a conflict in January, so we'll be on the third Thursday. All right, so mark that in your calendar, third Thursday. Trace Guttridge, he's the owner, operator at the Chick-fil-A Northgate, is going to be with us. He was one of the youngest operators across the country. And so he is just a passionate young leader, loves the Lord, has a really interesting story, and I think it's really going to encourage you hearing from him. So third Thursday in January, Merry Christmas. God bless you.